Hey, guys and girls, welcome back. Excited to continue to read our book. And this month, our book is The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. The cover looks like this. And we just got done discussing the strategy and the action portion. What's right is what works. And so we're going to move forward into the next strategy. Before we dive in, if you guys could do me a favor, hold on here. Something popped up on the computer. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button for only those that like to read, enjoy to read, and or are big fans of Ryan Holiday. Would love for you guys to watch some of the podcasts that I'm producing and read along with me as I add books to the catalog. So just to dive into the next strategy in the action portion here, this strategy is called In Praise of the Flank Attack. So when we face obstacles, far too often we try to use our force and take our opponent head on, right? This could be metaphorical. This could be with our words. This could be literal. We try far too often to use our force against them directly. A lot of the time, we don't have the capacity or the resources to successfully do this. How many times do we think or strategize using a flank style of attack? So this is not only just the introduction to another way to go about things, but also to acknowledge that oftentimes bulldozing our way in against an opponent that is a manager of ours, our company owner, our competitors, they can be just too large with too many resources to take on. So we got to think intuitively, right? And part of the way to do that is to leverage the strategy of flanking attack. So real strategists don't allow their ego to cloud how they fight or compete. Our natural instinct when we are getting pushed is to push back. Yet, is that the best way to do it? So this is encouraging us to dig deep and think of a handful of other options as, let's say, grandmaster chess players use to attack their opponent. And kind of a cool place to look at this, or as another analogy, in martial arts, students are taught when pushed to use their opponent's force against them, a smart move versus the ego move. So that is a really big thing to kind of key in on. I know for guys, especially, sometimes when we ruffle our feathers and get big and want to come at someone physically, our natural instinct is to push back. And what martial arts is teaching us, and maybe just as a principle, sometimes the best way to attack that obstacle is to stir it up and to piss it off, and then use its force against itself to do a hip toss physically or metaphorically to throw it off kilter and to get it into a position it may not normally be in. We're trying to figure out what the smart move is versus what our ego says, and oftentimes the ego does propose that we stab as a full force straight ahead. Turn into the book here, page 105, if you guys do want to get to that point. So, what's your first instinct when facing a challenge? Is it to outspend the competition, argue with people in an attempt to change a long-held opinion? Are you trying to barge through the front door? Because the back door, the side door, and the windows may have been left wide open. And what a phenomenal way to phrase it, right? How many times do we argue with people on a long-held opinion that they likely will not change, or we're trying to face something head on, when in reality, sometimes the back door, the side door, and the windows could be an easy way for us to maneuver. Whatever you're doing, it's going to be harder if your plan includes defying physics or logic. Instead, think of Grant realizing that he had to bypass Vicksburg, not go at it in order to capture it. So that's kind of a former reference of Ulysses S. Grant and how he talked about how he used a method outside of conventional thinking to actually go past a fort that he was trying to attack and win over. And what he did is actually ditched all the resources of the army and actually used the resources that the opponent were using to kind of bleed them out. And then eventually he was able to do that to the point where he was able to take over Vicksburg. And in this particular case, again, does your plan include to defy physics and logic? So sometimes we just have to be honest with ourselves and say, hey, I'm up against a behemoth and I can't just go right at it. Another frame of reference, think of Hall of Fame coach Phil Jackson and his famous triangle offense, which was designed to automatically route the basketball away from defensive pressure rather than to attack it directly. Again, you are drawing people out, you are flanking them, you're getting them exposed, and you're getting them in their aggression trying to come after you for you to be able to circumvent them and win the obstacle. This is another good piece, and then we'll get wrapped up for this particular strategy. So masters know how and when to exert their strengths strategically, even if it doesn't look sexy. So this is a really big thing going back to the ego, is that sometimes masters seem down and out. Sometimes their opponents think that they're going to take them over easily. And what they're really doing is trying to draw you out, trying to get in your head, really trying to pull all that stuff together for when the moment is right, then they attack with all the force that they have and really kind of quickly take down their opponent. And that's smart because they know how to conserve their energy and play different strategies like this flank attack to kind of draw people out and get them in an uncomfortable position. To conclude this, we'll have two segments from the book. So we'll go to 106, read from here a little bit. So being outnumbered, coming from behind, being low on funds, these don't have to be disadvantages. They can be gifts. Assets that make us less likely to commit suicide with a head-to-head attack. These things force us to be creative, to find workarounds, to sublimate ego, and to do anything to win besides challenging our enemy where they are most strong. These are the signs that tell us to approach an obsolete angle. So the thing I like about that a lot is it's saying that because we know that we're in a position of likely defeat, it forces us to really think outside the box and not necessarily go right at our opponent. In fact, having the advantage of size or strength or power is often the birthing ground for true and fatal weakness. The inertia of success makes it much harder to truly develop a good technique. People or companies who have the size advantage never really have to learn the process when they've been able to coast on brute force, and that's what works for them until it doesn't, until they meet you and you make quick work of them with a very creative maneuver when you refuse to face them in a one-on-one setting, or in the one setting they know head-to-head. So this is just truly acknowledging that maybe their greatest strength is that they're so comfortable being the behemoth that they're so used to wanting to kind of go right at somebody head-to-head. And obviously we wouldn't be dumb enough to go into a situation where we would force ourselves into that. We'd be able to outmaneuver them. Lastly, here on 108. Okay. You are acting like a real strategist. You aren't just throwing your weight around and hoping it works. I like that. Hoping it works. You're not wasting your energy in battles driven by ego and pride, rather the tactical advantage. Believe it or not, this is the hard way. That's why it works. Remember, sometimes the longest way around is the shortest way home. So we'll end the sentiment on that specific piece. And maybe said another way, David and Goliath, a very notorious Bible story, tells of a clear disadvantage between David being a shepherd boy and Goliath being this huge behemoth. Yet when you break it down, David actually has the advantage because Goliath is large and slow, and David is working from a form of archery with his slingshot. So as much as people think that he can just, Goliath cut him in half with the axe, David is able to outmaneuver him and use that slingshot and hit him right in between the eyes and kill him. So leverage this in your obstacle facing. Hopefully you enjoyed this strategy. I obviously want to keep reading, and hopefully you guys found some value in the episode. Let's keep going.